I watched in horror as the designer toilet brush fell from my trembling hands, clattering against the imported Italian marble floor. Tears of humiliation burned my eyes as my mother-in-law's cruel laughter echoed through the mansion's gilded bathroom. But what happened when my billionaire husband walked in and saw me on my knees, scrubbing his family's toilets like a servant, changed everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and what it truly means to stand up for someone you care about. This is my story. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Now let me take you back to that life-changing Tuesday morning that started like any other day in my personal hell. My name is Elena Rodriguez, and 6 months ago, I thought I was living a fairy tale. I had just married the love of my life, Christopher Ashford, heir to one of the biggest tech fortunes in the country. Our wedding was featured in 3 different magazines, and for a brief, shining moment, I believed I had found my happily ever after. But fairy tales, I learned, don't prepare you for the reality of marrying into old money. They don't warn you about the whispered conversations that stop when you enter a room, the way people look at you like you're wearing a sign that says gold digger, or how a mother-in-law can make your life a living nightmare while maintaining the perfect smile for the cameras. I grew up in a small apartment above my grandmother's bakery in East Valley, where the smell of fresh bread and the sound of Spanish lullabies filled every corner of my childhood. My parents worked 3 jobs between them to send me to college, where I studied business and dreamed of opening my own consulting firm. I wasn't born into wealth, but I was born into love, hard work, and the belief that respect is earned, not inherited. That's where I met Christopher during my senior year. He was different from the other wealthy students on campus. He volunteered at the community center, drove a modest car despite his family's billions, and never once made me feel ashamed of my secondhand clothes or my need to work 2 part-time jobs to pay for textbooks. When he told me he loved me, I believed him. When he proposed with his grandmother's ring, I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. The warning signs started during our engagement. Victoria Ashford, Christopher's mother, insisted on planning our wedding herself. Every suggestion I made was politely dismissed. Every tradition from my culture was deemed inappropriate for the Ashford family image. She smiled while she crushed my dreams of a celebration that honored both our backgrounds, and I was too naive to recognize the pattern that would define our relationship. The mansion where Christopher had grown up was like something out of a movie, but not the romantic kind. It was the kind of movie where the walls have eyes and every room holds secrets. 37 rooms spread across manicured grounds that required a staff of 12 to maintain. Victoria ruled over it all like a queen holding court, and from the moment Christopher and I moved into the East Wing after our honeymoon, she made it clear that I was not welcome in her kingdom. It started small, comments about my clothes being a bit too colorful for afternoon tea with the board members' wives, suggestions that I might want to improve my posture or perhaps speak more softly at dinner parties. She had a gift for delivering criticism wrapped in concern, making it sound like she was doing me a favor while systematically destroying my confidence. Christopher traveled constantly for business, managing the family's tech investments across 3 continents. When he was home, Victoria transformed into the perfect mother-in-law, all smiles and warmth, asking about my day and complimenting my choice of dress. But the moment his car disappeared down the circular driveway, the mask came off. The real torture began 3 months into our marriage. Victoria announced that she was restructuring the household staff to improve efficiency. What she really meant was that she was firing half the cleaning crew and expected me to pick up the slack. Not openly, of course. That would have been too obvious. Instead, she began a campaign of passive-aggressive warfare that would have impressed military strategists. She would invite her bridge club over on days when she knew Christopher was traveling, then express concern that the guest bathroom wasn't quite up to her standards. She would suggest that perhaps I could help ensure the house was ready for company, since I had so much free time. When I pointed out that I was actually working on launching my consulting business, she would smile that cold smile and remind me that family comes first and that the Ashford reputation depended on maintaining certain standards. The first time she handed me a bucket and mop, I thought it was a joke. We were standing in the marble foyer, sunlight streaming through the crystal chandelier, and Victoria was dressed in a designer suit that probably cost more than my parents made in 6 months. She held out the cleaning supplies like she was offering me a gift. "Elena, darling," she said in that syrupy voice she used when she was about to destroy me, I noticed some water spots on the bathroom fixtures upstairs. Since you have such attention to detail, I thought you might want to take care of them before Christopher gets home. We wouldn't want him to think we're not maintaining his family home properly. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. When it didn't come, I realized she was serious. Victoria, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm not the cleaning staff. Her smile never wavered, but her eyes turned to ice. Of course not, dear. You're family. Which is why I know you want what's best for this household. The regular cleaning service doesn't always catch these little details, and I'd hate for Christopher to be embarrassed when his business associates visit. She said it so reasonably, so logically, that for a moment I actually considered it. That's the insidious power of emotional manipulation. It makes you question your own reality, makes you wonder if maybe you're being unreasonable for not wanting to scrub toilets in a mansion you're supposed to call home. But I found my voice. I understand you want everything perfect, but I have work to do. My business launch is next month, and I have 3 client presentations to prepare. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Victoria's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the air between us. Your little business project, she said, and somehow she managed to make it sound like I'd said I was starting a lemonade stand. How wonderful that you have hobbies to keep you busy, but right now I need those bathrooms cleaned. The word need hung between us like a threat. I wanted to walk away, to call Christopher and tell him what his mother was trying to do, but I also knew how much he loved her, how he'd already had to navigate the tension between us during family dinners and social events. The last thing I wanted was to put him in the middle of a war between his wife and his mother. So I took the bucket. I told myself it was just this once, just to keep the peace. I told myself I was being the bigger person, that I was showing Victoria I could handle whatever she threw at me. I told myself a lot of things that day as I scrubbed water spots off bathroom fixtures while my mother-in-law supervised from the doorway, offering helpful suggestions about technique and efficiency. That first day of cleaning set the pattern for what would become my daily routine of humiliation. Victoria had a genius for finding imperfections that required immediate attention. A smudge on a mirror, dust on a picture frame, fingerprints on a door handle. Each discovery required me to drop whatever I was doing and fix it immediately. Because we never know when Christopher might bring home important guests. She never directly ordered me to clean. Instead, she would express concern about the state of the house, worry about what people would think, suggest that perhaps I could help out until the regular staff could be retrained. She made it sound like I was volunteering, like I was choosing to spend my days with a toilet brush instead of building the business I'd dreamed of since college. The worst part wasn't the physical work. I'd grown up helping in my grandmother's bakery, and hard work had never scared me. The worst part was the way Victoria watched me. The satisfaction in her eyes as she saw me on my knees scrubbing floors in the designer clothes Christopher had bought me. She was systematically destroying my sense of self-worth, and she was enjoying every minute of it. My business launch got postponed, then postponed again. How could I focus on client presentations when I was spending 4 hours a day cleaning a mansion that already employed professional housekeepers? How could I build a consulting firm when my mother-in-law was consulting me on the proper way to clean grout? Christopher noticed that I seemed stressed, but I couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth. How do you explain to the man you love that his mother is making you clean toilets? How do you compete with 30 years of "my mother is a saint" programming? Every time I tried to bring up Victoria's behavior, he would look so confused and hurt that I would backtrack, making excuses for his mother and blaming my stress on the business launch delays. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning in November. Christopher had left before dawn for a 3-day business trip to Seattle, and Victoria appeared in our bedroom door at 7 a.m. with her usual arsenal of cleaning supplies and that terrifying smile. "Good morning, Elena," she chirped as if she was bringing me breakfast in bed instead of a toilet brush. "I'm having some very important guests for lunch today, board members and their wives. I do hope you'll help me ensure everything is absolutely perfect." I sat up in bed, pulling Christopher's pillow against my chest like armor. "Victoria, I have a conference call with potential clients at 10. I've been trying to reschedule this meeting for 3 weeks. Her smile faltered for just a moment, and I saw something dangerous flash in her eyes. "Elena, dear, I think we need to have a conversation about priorities. You've been living in this house for 6 months, enjoying all the benefits of the Ashford name and fortune. Don't you think it's time you contributed something meaningful to this family? The words hit me like a physical blow. I contribute plenty to this family. I love your son, I support his work, and I'm trying to build a business that will make both of us proud. Victoria stepped into the room, and suddenly the space felt much smaller. A business that exists only in your imagination isn't a contribution, dear. It's a distraction. Christopher needs a wife who understands her role, who knows how to maintain the standards this family has upheld for generations. I felt tears threatening, but I refused to give her the satisfaction. And what role is that exactly? Because I thought being Christopher's wife meant being his partner, not his mother's personal cleaning service. The mask finally came off completely. Victoria's face transformed into something cold and cruel, and when she spoke, her voice was no longer sweet and condescending. It was sharp as a blade and twice as cutting. Your role, Elena, is whatever I decide it is. You may have fooled Christopher with your innocent act and your sob story about growing up poor, but I see right through you. You're nothing but a gold-digging little girl who got lucky enough to catch my son's attention. But luck runs out, dear. And marriages built on lies don't last. I felt my world tilt on its axis. Lies? What lies? Victoria laughed, and it was the cruelest sound I'd ever heard. The lie that you belong here. The lie that you're good enough for the Ashford family. The lie that Christopher will choose you over his own mother when he finally sees who you really are. She set the cleaning supplies down on my nightstand with deliberate precision, each item placed like a chess piece in a game I was losing badly. Now I suggest you get dressed and get to work. Those toilets won't clean themselves, and my guests arrive in 4 hours. We wouldn't want them to think the new Mrs. Ashford doesn't know how to properly maintain a home. I stared at her, this woman who had given birth to the man I loved, who had raised him to be kind and generous at everything she clearly wasn't. Why are you doing this to me? For a moment, something that might have been genuine emotion crossed her face. Because Christopher is my son, and I will not watch him throw away his future on someone who will never be worthy of the Ashford legacy. You can play house all you want, Elena, but eventually, he'll realize what I've known all along. You don't belong here. She turned to leave, then paused in the doorway. Oh, and Elena? If you're thinking about running to Christopher with tales of mean old Victoria, remember this. I've been his mother for 32 years. You've been his wife for 6 months. Who do you think he'll believe? The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like a prison cell locking. I sat there in the bed I shared with Christopher, surrounded by the luxury I'd never asked for, holding cleaning supplies like instruments of torture, and realized that I was completely alone. But sometimes, when you hit rock bottom, you find something you didn't know you had. Sometimes, the moment you think you're completely defeated is the moment you discover what you're really made of. As I looked at that toilet brush, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to let Victoria Ashford destroy me. I wasn't going to let her win. Not today. I got dressed with shaking hands, each piece of clothing feeling like armor I was putting on for battle. The conference call with potential clients would have to wait. Again, I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, practicing the smile I would need to survive the next few hours. The woman looking back at me had dark circles under her eyes and a defeated slump to her shoulders that I barely recognized. But as I picked up that toilet brush, something inside me shifted. Maybe it was the memory of my grandmother, who had cleaned office buildings at night to put my mother through school, but never let anyone make her feel small. Maybe it was the voice of my father, who had always told me that dignity wasn't something anyone could take from you unless you let them. Or maybe it was just pure stubbornness, the same trait that had gotten me through college on scholarships and part-time jobs while other students partied. I would clean Victoria's toilets. But I would do it on my terms, with my head held high, knowing that this was temporary and that I was stronger than she thought. The guest bathroom on the second floor was already spotless, maintained by the professional cleaning crew that came twice a week. But Victoria had found a water spot on the faucet that apparently threatened the very foundations of civilized society. I got to work, scrubbing fixtures that gleamed like mirrors, while downstairs I could hear Victoria directing the caterers who were preparing lunch for her important guests. As I worked, I thought about Christopher, probably sitting in a boardroom in Seattle, making decisions that affected thousands of employees and millions in revenue. He trusted people, believed in their basic goodness, because that's how Victoria had raised him. It was one of the things I loved most about him, but it also made him blind to his mother's cruelty. In his world, mothers didn't wage psychological warfare against their daughters-in-law. Families supported each other. Love was unconditional. I envied him that innocence, even as I was paying the price for it. The sound of expensive cars pulling into the circular driveway told me Victoria's guests were arriving. I could hear voices drifting up from the foyer, the kind of cultured conversation that came with generations of privilege and education. These were the people Victoria wanted to impress, the social circle she'd spent decades cultivating, the audience for whom my humiliation was just another performance. I finished the bathroom and moved on to the powder room downstairs, timing my cleaning to avoid the dining room where Victoria was holding court. Through the service hallway, I could catch glimpses of elegantly dressed women with perfect hair and jewelry that cost more than most people's cars. They laughed at Victoria's jokes and complimented her on the beautiful home, never knowing that the woman they were praising was upstairs forcing her daughter-in-law to scrub toilets like a servant. "Victoria, your home is absolutely stunning," I heard one woman say. "You must have the most wonderful staff to maintain all this." Victoria's laugh tinkled like wind chimes. "Oh, we're very particular about our standards. I believe in hands-on management, making sure every detail is perfect. Family involvement is so important, don't you think?" Family involvement. I almost laughed at the irony as I scrubbed the marble floor of the powder room, my designer jeans soaking up cleaning solution while Victoria's friends praised her domestic management skills. The lunch seemed to go on forever. I moved like a ghost through the mansion, cleaning rooms that didn't need cleaning, polishing surfaces that already gleamed, staying out of sight while Victoria played the perfect hostess. Every now and then, I would hear my name mentioned in passing conversation. "Yes, Christopher's new wife is lovely," Victoria would say. "Still adjusting to our way of life, of course. It's quite a change from her background." The way she said background made it sound like I'd crawled out of a gutter instead of graduating summa cum laude from a respected university. But her friends ate it up, nodding sympathetically, as if marrying into money was such a burden that required their pity. I was in the main floor bathroom, the one guests used during parties, when I heard Victoria's voice getting closer. My heart started racing as I realized she was giving her friends a tour of the house, showing off the artwork and antiques that had been in the Ashford family for generations. "And this is our main guest bathroom," Victoria announced, her voice right outside the door. Christopher's grandfather had the marble imported from Italy in 1952. I froze, toilet brush in hand, as the door opened and Victoria appeared with 4 of her perfectly coiffed friends. The look of surprise on their faces was almost comical as they took in the sight of me, on my knees in designer clothes, scrubbing a toilet while Victoria's social circle watched. But Victoria's expression was pure satisfaction. This wasn't an accident. She had planned this moment, orchestrated it like a director staging a scene. She wanted her friends to see me like this, wanted them to witness my degradation and carry the story back to their own social circles. "Oh," one of the women exclaimed, clearly uncomfortable. "I'm so sorry, we didn't realize." Victoria stepped forward, her smile bright as sunlight and twice as blinding. "Ladies, I'd like you to meet my daughter-in-law, Elena. She's been helping me prepare for today. Such a hands-on approach to homemaking, don't you think?" The silence that followed was deafening. 4 wealthy women stared at me while I knelt on a bathroom floor, and I could see the confusion in their eyes. This wasn't normal. Even they knew this wasn't how family members treated each other, but Victoria was their friend, their social leader, and questioning her would mean questioning the entire structure of their carefully ordered world. I looked up at them, these women who had probably never cleaned their own toilets in their lives, and made a choice that surprised even me. I smiled. "Victoria's right," I said, my voice steady despite the burning in my cheeks. "I believe in being thorough." I stood up slowly, toilet brush still in hand, meeting each of their gazes directly. "My grandmother always taught me that there's dignity in any honest work, and that taking care of your home and family is never something to be ashamed of." One of the women, a silver-haired lady with kind eyes, nodded slightly. "Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman." Victoria's smile faltered for just a moment. This wasn't going according to her script. I was supposed to be humiliated, embarrassed, defeated. Instead, I was standing there talking about dignity and family values, making her friends think about their own grandmothers who might have done similar work. Yes, well, Victoria said quickly, we should continue the tour. The gardens are particularly lovely this time of year. As they filed out, the silver-haired woman lingered for a moment. Elena, dear, she said quietly, your husband is very lucky to have someone who cares so much about his family's home. After they left, I leaned against the bathroom counter and allowed myself one moment of shaking. Victoria had tried to break me in front of her friends, to show them that I was nothing more than hired help who had gotten above my station. But somehow, in that moment of ultimate humiliation, I had found something I didn't know I possessed, the ability to reframe my own story. I wasn't a daughter-in-law being forced to clean toilets. I was a woman taking care of her family's home. I wasn't being degraded. I was showing the strength and work ethic that had carried my family through generations of struggle and triumph. The afternoon wore on, and Victoria's friends eventually left, taking with them the story of Christopher Ashford's wife scrubbing toilets like the help. I knew it would be all over their social circle by evening, whispered about over dinner parties and charity luncheons. Victoria had gotten what she wanted, my public humiliation. But as I finished cleaning the last bathroom, I realized something had changed inside me. I was tired of being Victoria's victim. I was tired of letting her dictate the terms of my life, my marriage, my sense of self-worth. I was tired of being afraid. Christopher was due home that evening, and for the first time in months, I was going to tell him the truth. All of it. The cleaning, the manipulation, the systematic campaign to destroy my confidence and drive me out of his life. I was done protecting his relationship with his mother at the expense of my own sanity. I spent the rest of the afternoon planning what I would say, how I would explain 6 months of silent suffering without sounding like I was attacking the woman who raised him. It wouldn't be easy. Christopher loved his mother, respected her, trusted her judgment in everything from business to personal relationships. But he also loved me, and I had to believe that love was strong enough to withstand the truth. The sun was setting when I heard his car in the driveway. I had showered and changed into the blue dress he'd bought me for our 3-month anniversary, the one he said brought out my eyes. I needed all the confidence I could get for the conversation we were about to have. Christopher came through the front door like he always did, dropping his briefcase by the entrance table and calling out my name. I could hear the tiredness in his voice, the weight of 3 days of meetings and negotiations. He looked forward to coming home, to the peace and quiet of family life, away from the pressures of running a billion-dollar company. Elena, I'm home! His voice echoed through the foyer, warm and loving and completely trusting. I walked down the main staircase, my heart pounding with each step. He looked up at me and smiled. The same smile that had made me fall in love with him in that college coffee shop 4 years ago. For a moment, I almost lost my nerve. How could I destroy his faith in the woman who had given him life, raised him, shaped him into the man I loved? But then I remembered the toilet brush, the cruel laughter, the way Victoria had watched me scrub floors while her friends toured the house. I remembered the months of systematic humiliation, the way she had made me doubt my own worth, my own place in this family. How was Seattle? I asked, wrapping my arms around him, breathing in the familiar smell of his cologne mixed with airplane air and coffee. Productive but exhausting, he said, holding me tight. I missed you. How was your week? Did you and Mom manage to stay out of trouble? The irony of his question almost made me laugh. If only he knew what kind of trouble his mother had been creating. Christopher, we need to talk. Something in my tone made him pull back and look at me more carefully. What's wrong? You look upset. I am upset. I've been upset for months, and I should have told you sooner. I took his hand and led him into the living room, away from the main areas where Victoria might overhear us. It's about your mother. His expression immediately became guarded. Elena, please, I know you two haven't exactly bonded, but she's trying. She really is. This is a big adjustment for everyone. Christopher, listen to me. Really listen. I sat down on the couch and pulled him down beside me. Your mother isn't trying to adjust. She's trying to drive me away. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I recognized from whenever he was stressed or uncomfortable. What do you mean? So I told him everything. The cleaning assignments, the passive-aggressive comments, the way Victoria transformed when he wasn't around. I told him about the toilet brushes and the degrading tasks, about being forced to scrub floors while his mother's friends toured the house. I told him about the business meetings I'd missed, the dreams I'd postponed, the way his mother had systematically destroyed my confidence over 6 months of psychological warfare. Christopher listened in silence, his face growing paler with each revelation. When I finished, he sat there for a long moment, staring at his hands. "Elena," he said finally, this is hard to believe. My mother raised me to treat everyone with respect. She taught me about dignity and kindness. What you're describing, it's not the woman I know." I had expected this reaction, but it still hurt. "I know it's hard to believe. She's very careful to only show you the version of herself she wants you to see. But Christopher, I'm your wife. Why would I lie about something like this?" "I'm not saying you're lying," he said quickly. "I'm saying maybe there's been some miscommunication. Maybe she thought she was helping, teaching you about the family traditions or something." I felt tears of frustration building. "Christopher, she made me clean toilets while her friends watched. There's no miscommunication in humiliation." He stood up and began pacing, his business mind trying to solve a problem that couldn't be fixed with logic and negotiation. "Look, I'll talk to her. I'll make sure there's no confusion about your role in this family. You're my wife, not the help." "It's not about clarifying my role," I said, standing to face him. "It's about the fact that your mother is cruel. She's manipulative and vindictive, and she's been systematically trying to destroy our marriage." The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. Christopher stopped pacing and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. It was the look of a man being forced to choose between the two most important women in his life. "Elena, please, don't make me choose sides here. She's my mother." "I'm your wife," I replied, "and I'm not asking you to choose sides. I'm asking you to see the truth." Before he could respond, we heard the front door open and Victoria's voice calling out, "Christopher, darling, are you home? I have the most wonderful news to share." Her timing was perfect as always. She appeared in the living room doorway moments later, looking radiant in a designer dress with her hair perfectly styled. She had obviously been out somewhere important, probably spreading the story of her daughter-in-law's bathroom cleaning debut to anyone who would listen. "Christopher!" She rushed over to embrace him, her face lighting up with genuine maternal love. "How was your trip? You look tired. I'll have Maria make your favorite dinner." This was the Victoria that Christopher knew and loved. The doting mother, the perfect hostess, the woman who had sacrificed everything to raise him after his father died. I watched his face soften as she fussed over him, and I realized with growing despair that my words meant nothing compared to 32 years of this relationship. "Mom," Christopher said, gently extracting himself from her embrace. "Elena and I were just talking about some confusion regarding household responsibilities while I was away." Victoria's eyes flicked to me for just a moment, and I saw a flash of triumphant malice before her expression returned to innocent concern. "Oh dear, what kind of confusion? I do hope I haven't inadvertently caused any problems." The performance was masterful. The concerned mother, worried that she might have somehow upset her beloved daughter-in-law through some innocent misunderstanding. If I hadn't lived through the last 6 months, I might have believed it myself. "Elena feels that perhaps there's been some miscommunication about her role in the household," Christopher explained carefully. "She mentioned helping with some cleaning while I was away." Victoria's face went through a perfect progression of confusion, realization, and remorse. "Oh my goodness, Elena, I'm so sorry if I gave you the wrong impression. When I asked for your help with the guest bathroom before my luncheon, I never meant for you to feel like it was required. I just thought, since you offered to help with the household management, that you might want to ensure everything was perfect for my friends." I stared at her in amazement. She had just rewritten the entire narrative in 30 seconds, turning my forced servitude into my voluntary offer to help. And the terrible thing was, I could see Christopher buying it. His relief was visible as his mother provided a reasonable explanation that allowed him to believe the best of both the women he loved. "I never offered to help with household management," I said quietly. Victoria's eyes widened with hurt surprise. "Oh dear, perhaps I misunderstood. You know how these things can get confused in translation. English is your second language, after all." It was a masterstroke. English was actually my first language, but Victoria had planted a seed of doubt. Suggested that maybe I had misunderstood her requests. Maybe my immigrant background had caused confusion. I could see Christopher grasping at this explanation like a lifeline. "Maybe we should all sit down and discuss this calmly," he suggested. "There's obviously been some kind of misunderstanding." Quote. But as we sat in that perfectly appointed living room with Victoria playing the role of confused but well-meaning mother-in-law, I realized that no amount of discussion would change anything. She was too good at this game, too experienced at manipulation. And Christopher wanted to believe her, because the alternative would mean accepting that his mother was capable of cruelty. The conversation went exactly as Victoria had planned. She apologized for any confusion, promised to be more clear in her communications, and suggested that perhaps we should establish better boundaries to avoid future misunderstandings. She was gracious, understanding, and completely convincing. Christopher relaxed visibly as the conflict seemed to resolve itself through reasonable adult conversation. Crisis averted, family harmony restored, everyone happy. Except I wasn't happy, I was devastated, because I realized that this was how it would always be. Victoria would continue her campaign of psychological warfare, but she would be more careful, more subtle. And if I complained again, I would be the wife who couldn't get along with her poor, well-meaning mother-in-law, who had tried so hard to make peace. That night, as Christopher slept beside me, satisfied that he had solved our family's communication problem, I stared at the ceiling and planned my escape. Not from the marriage, but from Victoria's game. I couldn't beat her at manipulation, but I could stop playing by her rules. Tomorrow, everything would change. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, so you don't miss any upload from us.